Hey everybody. So in this video, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna talk. I'm just gonna kind of go through how I make the image for the interior rendering. And in that one, we brought in all kinds of different exports from SketchUp. So what you're looking right now is the garden render one that we just did. And now I will switch gears and do the photo studio. So I'm gonna close this. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open the photo studio. All those layers. Okay, we're on the photo texture layer here, so I'll do File, Save As, Photo Studio, save it as a Photoshop, rename this, lines. Ooh, those are the fun lines. Let's do these lines first. Lines. Okay, that looks good. By the way, Control minus, Control plus, kind of zoom in. So I'm done with lines. I'm gonna do the shadow now, but first I'm gonna change the layers or the levels. Control L. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Hit okay. That's already an awesome shot. I mean, who wouldn't want that on a t-shirt? I don't know. All right. Control A. Select all, copy, Control C. Go to my render file, Control V. Change that to multiply. Looks pretty dark, but also looks pretty dramatic. So it's kind of a cool shot. Okay, I'll close shadow. So I have two fun kind of layers left over. So what I'm going to do is mess with these first. 25% on the shadow. Work I'll leave. I'm going to make my adjustment layer and turn on levels and bring that layer down. So I'm just holding down the left mouse button, dragging it down to above texture. Let's see, brighten this up a little bit. Looks good, a little more saturated. That looks pretty good there. Maybe we can put these at like 50. Try something else here. I'm going to grab these fun colors, Control A, paste that in, but I'm going to move that layer down to under levels 1. Kind of like that one. So I have, if I turn it off, instead of that kind of normal, like white ghosted people, I'm going to put this in. Kind of a fun one. I'll call this texture 2. Seems a little dark. Maybe I'll play around with the levels in this one. That's kind of cool. Let's try this other weird thing. So I'm going to go to these crazy lines here. Control A, Control C for copy, paste them in render, or paste them in this render file. That's kind of neat. I'm going to change it to multiply. That looks kind of cool. Put this nice border around it. Put kind of this cool texture around things. Maybe I'm going to turn off texture 2. So this is my original. I'll call this lines 2. I'm going to turn off this first lines layer I brought in. It's not doing much, so I might just leave it on. Lines 2, I could turn the opacity down. I could turn it, keep it cranked. I think I'll keep it cranked. That looks like a pretty cool image right there. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Close these other windows. This is just my render file now. And I'll go ahead and save as a JPEG. Here are all my exports I have in there, and I'll hit save. Keep everything cranked here. Got a nice render. Now, one thing I might want to do but when I move between views is make sure I apply the same technique so all my images sort of go together. So I definitely want to use this same crazy lines export on all of my exports so that when I show my client these images, they all work nicely together, my exterior and my interior. So this looks pretty good. Now, keep in mind, if I want to, I can always go back to my photo studio, pick another style, photo modeling, sketchy edges, maybe something crazy in here, watercolor, for example, and I can go File, Export, 2D Graphic, just like we did before. I'll call this photo with that. Wait patiently. Done. Go to Photoshop. I'm going to go open up that little JPEG that I just made, photo marker. Control A, Control C, go to my render, Control V, put it blending mode on multiply. I'll call this lines 3. And I'm going to turn off the crazy lines 2. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good with that second one as well. So I kind of like the marker look too. So we can sort of add all this information. We can keep going back to the Photoshop files. As long as we export the same resolution, it'll overlay and fit right over this image that we've started here in Photoshop. So I'm going to save this. Now, if I want to export this and resave over my render file as the JPEG, I should do that, or I can keep the JPEG. However I want to do it. I just want to make sure that if I'm happy with this one, I want to save over. I'm going to go File, Save As, JPEG, and I'll call this one Photo Studio Render version 2. And hit save. Save. Now, when I go to that folder, I've got all the stuff I've exported from SketchUp, plus I have these 2 render JPEGs that I extracted from this Photoshop render file. So I have this one, right, with all the fuzzy stuff. Then I have the one I just did, version 2 with just the marker, which I actually like better. Fuzzy stuff ended up looking a little weird. So there we go. There's another example for you. I hope that is helpful.